guys, it's Emma. Welcome back to my channel. So we are going to be doing another book update, what I've been reading over spring break and kind of just into this spring. And I know I've been gone for a bit. AP exams are coming up, but I'll hopefully be back to the channel after that because I have some really exciting things coming up over the summer that I don't believe I've talked about yet on this channel, but I will very soon. So stay excited for that. Also, a PSA really quick before we get started. My last video, which was my Columbia kind of like college tours New York video, I promised a part 2, and as of right now, the SD card that contains the footage of the Boston colleges that I saw is currently missing. And I know that sounds a little wild because it was like, Emma, you were just editing that video, but unfortunately I didn't have the foresight to export all the files. I just did the New York part and was planning to come back for the Boston part later. But then I obviously lost the SD card, and at the moment that project is on an indefinite hold. I'm sure you will have seen that on my community tab if you're paying attention. But I'm really sorry about that, and I've honestly scoured my room, my house for it, and for now I'm just gonna have to put the project on hold and hope that it'll turn up as some things do. So again, I'm really sorry about that. And without further ado, let's get on into the video. So, I'm going to be pulling up my Goodreads on my iPad. The last time I talked to you guys about kind of my reading, what I've been up to, was when I finished Radio Silence for the Barnard Pre-College Book Club. And since then, I've actually read quite a lot. I'm going to my Read 2023. Okay, also it is thunderstorming outside, so if you hear any rumbles, see any flashes, that is why. Feel free to get cozy with me. You guys see me, I'm in my comfy, I've got my blankets. Feel free to do the same, bring a snack, and without further ado, let's get on to talking about what I've been reading. So, first, I read Six Crimson Cranes by Elizabeth Lim. This has been on my list for a very long time. You guys know I'm a fantasy fan. I kind of love the escapism, but also the realism that fantasy brings in the way that the world is very much escapism, and then the characters are very much real, with real conflicts that can be related back to real people. So that brief spiel is just letting you guys know how much I love fantasy. If you're new to this channel, which if so, consider subscribing. I work really hard on these videos. Okay, so Six Crimson Cranes, I have it up on Goodreads, is kind of about this princess, Shiori, I think is how you say her name, hopefully I'm saying that right. She lives in a land kind of without magic, and she has this stepmother who's kind of distrusting of her, and she ends up banishing her when Shiori finds out something about her, and then turns all her brothers into Six Crimson Cranes, and Shiori can't speak. So yeah, the book gets going right away. I actually gave this a 5 stars on Goodreads. I was a huge fan of this book. I'm not going to be giving any spoilers in these reviews unless I absolutely state it, because I kind of try to do these reviews as a way to document what I read, but also give you guys recommendations. So I will not be doing any spoilers, and that much you can definitely figure out by reading the little blurb on Goodreads. So yeah, I really, really, really loved this book. I love myself some fantasy. I really liked the chemistry between her and her love interest. I also really liked the conflict. It was really terrifying. You were kind of what? I love books that kind of make you think about what you would do in that situation, even if it's a fantasy book and that would never happen. I think that really well-written fantasy books can kind of make you insert yourself into the scenario of the main character, no matter how fantastical they may be. And it really made me think oh, if I lost my voice and my siblings were turned into cranes, what would I do? Which sounds kind of silly, but genuinely the books that make you think that are some of my favorites, and I really loved it. I think the writing was so good. And also kind of the incorporation of, I believe is Chinese, correct me if I'm wrong, mythology, ideas, gods and goddesses, was really cool. I really loved all of it, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure it's Chinese, but I do not want to be disrespectful in any way, so let me know in the comments down below. And yeah, I just really, really love this book. If you're a fan of fantasy, if you're a fan of I wouldn't even say YA, but I suppose yeah, YA, and even just good world building. If you liked The Iron Widow, which is another book that I'm a huge fan of, you definitely like this one, so I would definitely recommend. So the next book that I've read was the second one, surprise, surprise, The Dragon's Promise by Elizabeth Lim as well. This is part 2, and I'm not exactly going to give I'll give a little summary of this one, but I also don't want the last one to be spoiled. Basically, our main character, Shiori, through some way, goes to the dragon's realm with this guy Seiryu, who we meet like right in the beginning of the first book, so this is not a spoiler. But it's like this whole thing of like the Dragon Kingdom, and there's all these things going on. Like, it's just I can't really spoil it. I can't really describe it without spoiling the first book, so I'm not gonna try. But I will say it was an excellent sequel, really well written, and all like the world building was still as like vivid. The new setting of like the Dragon's Kingdom was really like interesting just kind of to read about. All of it just kind of had me guessing. I was really into it. It was definitely very action-packed, even though the first book was as well. I'd say it was probably more action-packed than the first book, and I really enjoyed it. I will say I did still like the first book more, but as far as second books go, this was a really, really, really good second book, and I also gave it 5 stars. So then next, Pride and Prejudice. This is a classic. You guys already know. Everyone loves Pride and Prejudice, so me saying that isn't exactly anything new. But guys, so first, to give you some background, I tried to read this when I was like, I don't know, 12, and that did not go very well. I tried to read the like text version first, and then I listened to the audiobook, and then I got it better when I was kind of like listening to the audiobook, but again, I was literally 12, so I didn't understand it as well as I might have. And I've been taking a Brit Lit course this semester, which I'm a huge, huge, huge fan of. I love that class. I love learning about the books, the history, like kind of the literature, like the motivations behind it, the meanings in the books. And so I chose this for my outside reading book because I knew that I had been meaning to read this for so long. Why not do it for a class? I know I'm gonna love it anyway. And of course I did. I will say, one note about this book is you do have to be patient with it. You are gonna read the first half and you're gonna be like, okay, I feel like I've just been reading her setting up the scenes, like nothing's really happening, no conflict is really going on. And I will say, this is a book that you have to be kind of patient with. Once you get to the back half of the book, the entire first half of the book, it will be clear why Jane Austen did that to you. All the setup, the characters are necessary for later. Every single thing will come back. That's something that I really admired about this book. I do not think there were, like, nothing that she inserted in the book was there for, like, no reason. There were no throwaway lines, no throwaway characters, and I just really loved how everything built up to something. And the second half of the book is easily, like, the best moment of this book, and I get that that's not really a moment because it's the second half, but just like the sequence of events, all the stuff that brings back what you've just read in the first half, it is just a masterpiece. And I also did watch the movie for the first time. I had been avoiding that movie until I read the book and fully understood it, because I'm someone that really likes to read books first. There are very few circumstances where I will voluntarily watch the movie first without having read the book. And this is one of them. I have been saving the movie for when I finish the book, and oh my god, I could like do a whole separate video on that. So good, would so recommend. But the book by itself is really good. I really love all the characters and their motivations. They're very interesting. What's also something that I found myself liking was kind of like the perspective of Elizabeth. I don't know why exactly it struck me as so like compelling, but a good like big theme of this book is like characters trying to work on themselves and better themselves, whether it's for each other or just trying to better themselves for themselves. It was very interesting to see how Elizabeth like perceived other people. It was very clearly biased, but it also kind of causes you to reflect on the way you might judge others if you don't like know their circumstances, you know what I mean? Which I feel like is a very universal theme. So again, we all know this is such a great book, and I really loved it. I gave this obviously a 5 stars. Okay. So next is Electra by Jennifer Saint. So this begins my spring break books. This is the first one that I read over spring break, and I loved this book. I read it in like 2 days, and this book, if I had to describe it in one word, or like, I guess 2, would be very Greek. This book is so Greek, it's like actually ridiculous. As someone who grew up as a fan of like Percy Jackson and then like read the myths because I thought it was quite interesting, this book is like the epitome of just like Greek drama and gore and just like revenge, and it is so good. So if you are a fan of any of those things, like Greek mythology, if you happen to be a fan of Percy Jackson and maybe haven't revisited it since, this is the book for you. It is so good. I kind of have been meaning to read some of this author's books. I know she wrote Ariadne, but I actually haven't read that. And something on the back, like a review that a reviewer said, really like kind of connected in my head with why I liked this so much. It says like it was something about her telling the women's perspective behind all these Greek myths, and that is exactly kind of why I liked it so much. I think this one was so good. It's about kind of the Trojan War and like the conflicts with that. We have 3 main characters and there's kind of a lot going on simultaneously, but it all works. There's a lot of like classic tragedy, miscommunication, revenge, blood. There is one graphic scene, and if you are not comfortable with SA, then I probably wouldn't recommend this book. It does have that, and I would like you to stay away from it if that's triggering or harmful to you, and just a warning. But other than that, like I said, very Greek. And I gave it a 4 stars on Goodreads. I really liked this book. I think the stories, the dynamics, and the characters were very complex and very interesting. Like I said, it's kind of like the women behind the stories of Greece, and I think that's such a cool concept. You guys know that I've read books like Circe and not liked them. I have documented that on this channel, but this one, surprisingly, although described as similar to Circe by some people that I know, did not strike the same sort of tone with me. The characters had very believable motivations. When I read books like Circe, I found that I couldn't quite connect with her because she was just so like ethereal, goddess-like. She was immortal, you know, all of her problems were very detached. And I talk further about that in that video, so if you're interested, feel free to check it out. I think it's up there. I'll give the little link. But yeah, I would recommend this if you like Greek mythology, and just also beware of my trigger warning that I mentioned before. If that is a sensitive topic to you, I would recommend you avoid this book. Okay, so the next one I read over spring break was A Lady's Guide to Fortune Hunting by Sophie Irwin. So this is very like Regency, Bridgerton. Like I said, I had read Pride and Prejudice before this. I'm reading these books chronologically, like telling you they're in the order of when I read them, is what I'm trying to say. So I was very into this at the time, and thankfully I had the foresight to buy kind of a book like that, and so I definitely enjoyed this. I read it quite fast. It is about our main character, Kitty Talbot, whose parents have died and she needs to marry a rich man fast to save her sisters. She goes to the London social scene to try to blend in with her aunt. A lot of theatrics. She's a very witty main character, and I really liked it. Some of the things she comes up with, it's just like, wow, you are so smooth. Like some of the situations she gets herself out of, it's kind of wild. Like it's fun to read even for like that aspect of it, and put on top of that like the aesthetics of the Regency era and like Bridgerton and all like the courting stuff. I will say that the love story and kind of like who she's gonna fall for in the end is very predictable. If you're looking for something that's kind of a more nuanced romance, I would not recommend this, but I would recommend this particularly like for its fun and its aesthetics and I guess the subject matter. It's just very lighthearted. There are very few like hard scenes in this book, even though of course our main character has conflict. It's definitely a lot more of a lighthearted book, especially compared to Electra, which I had read previously. So I gave this a 4 stars on Goodreads, and I would definitely recommend this if you're a fan of Bridgerton, Pride and Prejudice, any sort of Regency era thing, and if you're looking for just a lighthearted read that is kind of just a predictable but still admittedly enjoyable romance. So next, I read Woman on Fire by Lisa Barr. This has been on my list for a while because although the subject matter is quite different from my novel kind of does involve sort of art and like the world of art, so I had it on my list for being similar to my novel, and let me say it did not disappoint. It's about our main character Jules, who goes to this investigative journalist, and they get this story about this painting that has mysteriously gone missing, and it's also connected with this high fashion guy named Ellis, and it's very personal to him. This is all in the thing, so again, no spoilers, but yeah, and so they go on this like trying to figure out where the painting is, who has it, and they go up against this character called Margot, I think is how you say it, de Laurent. I am not French, I don't take French, I'm a Spanish student, so if I say that wrong, I'm so sorry, but Margot is like, she's top of the art world, she's like this from this family that owns this really famous gallery, and she's also after the painting. So it's kind of a race against her and like her cutthroat tactics. She's kind of like a little crazy. You kind of get that as you go throughout the story. This woman will do anything for this painting, and Jules and Dan obviously have a very personal stake in it as well, because this guy Ellis that Dan is friends with is also looking for it. So I definitely recommend, if you're kind of a fan of like World War II, or like maybe even just like books about journalism. I don't know if that makes sense, but a lot of this book is consumed in the looking for the story, finding the story, but it's also very fast-paced because Margot, like I said, drives a lot of the plot by being so like intense with her actions towards getting the painting, and of course Jules and Dan are trying to do it. It's very fast-paced, very entertaining if you like art, even kind of like World War II. It has a little bit of World War II. I don't know if it's history, because obviously this isn't nonfiction. It does still have some World War II references. I can't exactly tell you how accurate they are. I do obviously know about World War II, but I'm no historian, so take that with a little bit of a grain of salt. I can't exactly tell you like how accurate it is, but I'd say if you like anything like around that time period, if you liked, for example, Monuments Men, which I know is another popular kind of like World War II art-esque piece of media, I know there's a book and a movie, then I would definitely recommend reading this, and it's definitely very fast-paced and you can get through it very fast. I gave it a 4 stars on Goodreads. And my last one that has us up to where I'm reading now, this one I have finished, so this is the last one that I've completed, is what I mean by that. I read I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jennette McCurdy. As you guys know, this kind of took the world by storm in 2022, but I had it on my shelf for a while, kind of like on my to-read, because I definitely thought it was interesting. Its content is vaguely similar to Evelyn Hugo. If you guys remember, I talked about this book on this channel, I think. In the way that it discusses child stardom. However, it's a lot more graphic and a lot more personal, because the author is, of course, a real person, Jennette McCurdy. And she has gone through all this abuse and all this terrible stuff, and her relationships with her family are very central to it. Obviously, you can guess by the title that it's mostly about her mom, but it's also about her relationship with herself and her relationship with the industry. And I'm just really happy for her that she was able to get out of the other side, realize that she should realize what she loved to do, which was writing, and publish a book as high quality as this. Bravo. It's a great piece of media, and although it is very kind of terrifying in some parts, I think that a book like this is necessary to paint like the evils of, obviously, the exploitation of children in Hollywood. I mean, it's just an incredibly complex topic, and a perspective like this from someone who's actually gone through it and been on a super popular show is quite important, I think, and it's very important for her to tell her story. This was a great book. I gave it a 4 stars. I would recommend if you're interested in any type of memoir, but also if you're kind of interested in like the inner workings of Hollywood. It is hard to read because of all the abuse she went through. However, it is miraculously well written, and it also kind of has a little bit of a sense of humor, which is kind of also advertised around the book. Like, I think it has a quote on the back that's like very like witty while also exposing the truths, which is very true. I think it is a great book, great entertainment, and again, I gave it a 4 stars. I feel very proud of her, even though obviously I don't know her. She's like a huge star, but this book just seems like a real win for her, and great job. It is a great book. If you found a new book that you would like to read, please leave a like or comment down below which one it was. I'd really appreciate the engagement. Also, as a small content creator, I do invite criticism as long as it is well-intentioned. If there's something I said wrong, if there's something you'd like to correct, or a new perspective you'd like to offer, feel free to leave it in the comments down below as long as you're respectful. Also, I just really like to thank you all for sticking around. I know I've been infrequent, but I really sincerely appreciate it. And like I said, I'll be back this summer with some exciting content of me doing some exciting things. Again, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you stayed to this point in the video, I really appreciate it, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!